In today's video, we take a look at 5 times African leaders faced the Western media with a fearless stance, calling out double standards, defending their nation's sovereignty, and refusing to bow under pressure. Each of these speeches reflects the resolve to demand respect on the global stage, challenging inequalities and fighting for the dignity of their people. Uhuru Kenyatta. In this interview, Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta addressed the contentious issue of LGBT rights in Kenya, stating that it is not a priority for the nation. He emphasized that the topic of sexual preference is not considered a significant human rights issue by the majority of Kenyans, reflecting cultural values that oppose homosexuality. Kenyatta asserted that while no Kenyan should face abuse or discrimination, the laws regarding LGBT individuals are supported by 99% of the population and are rooted in societal norms. He expressed that discussions about gay rights may be more relevant in the future, but are not currently aligned with the pressing concerns of Kenyans, such as economic growth and public health. Ultimately, he maintained that his role as president is to represent the views of the Kenyan people, who prioritize other issues over LGBT rights at this time.
This is an issue of society, of our own base as a culture, as a people, regardless of which community you come from. This is not acceptable. This is not agreeable. This is not about Uhuru Kenyatta saying yes or no. This is an issue of the people of Kenya themselves, who have bestowed upon themselves a constitution, right, after several years, have clearly stated that this is not a subject that they are willing to engage in, yeah, at this time and moment. In years to come, possibly long after I'm president, who knows? Maybe our society will have reached a stage where those are issues that people are willing, freely and open to discuss. I have to be honest with you. And that is a position that we have always maintained. Those are the laws that we have, and those are laws that are 100% supported by 99% of the Kenyan people, irregardless of where they come from.
Cyril Ramaphosa. During this speech, President Uhuru Kenyatta addressed the pressing issues surrounding global commitments to Africa, particularly in the context of vaccine access and climate finance. He expressed frustration over the unmet promises, such as the $100 billion annual commitment made during climate talks, emphasizing that many African nations felt like beggars during the COVID-19 pandemic when they struggled to secure vaccines, while wealthier countries hoarded supplies. Kenyatta highlighted the need for tangible actions rather than mere promises, urging for concrete infrastructure projects, especially in energy generation, to benefit the continent. He pointed out that 600 million Africans lack electricity despite having abundant resources, advocating for initiatives like the Inga Power Station project that could provide power to multiple countries. The president called for a collaborative effort among nations and multilateral banks to turn these discussions into actionable plans that would restore faith in international commitments and support Africa's development goals.
Us is a bit of a negative. You will have heard President Sisi talking about the 100 billion that was promised in Paris. President Sassou Nguesso yesterday as well also spoke about it at the dinner. Now there is that issue that a number of the commitments that have been made have not really been fully lived up to. But before I get into details, let me immediately say that we recognize the many initiatives that have been put on the table, and a number of countries here have done so. Germany has gone out of the way to put a number of initiatives, and the US has also done a number of things. But there have been times when we felt like we were beggars. I played a key role as chair of the African Union during the COVID period. We felt like we were beggars when it came to vaccine availability, when we felt we needed access to vaccines, and the Northern Hemisphere countries had bought all the vaccines in the world and they were hogging them. And they didn't want to release them at the time when we needed them most. And we felt like we were begging. And at times it felt like they would just be droppings from the table, that yes, we will give you that and that. And let me tell you something that generated a lot of resentment. We resented that, and it got worse when we said we want to manufacture our own vaccines. And when we went to the WTO, there was a lot of resistance, enormous resistance. And we kept saying, what is more important, life or profits?
Paul Kagame. In his speech, Rwandan President Paul Kagame addressed criticisms regarding human rights and democracy in Rwanda, asserting that such critiques often stem from Western hypocrisy. He emphasized that democracy should be defined by the people of Rwanda rather than imposed by external forces, highlighting the inconsistency of Western nations that criticize his long tenure while facing their own democratic challenges. Kagame stated that elections in Rwanda have been free and fair, countering claims of undemocratic practices. He argued that if democracy is about choice, then Rwandans should be allowed to determine their leadership without outside interference. Furthermore, he acknowledged the debate over presidential term limits, but insisted that the satisfaction of the Rwandan people with their governance should take precedence over external opinions. Kagame's remarks reflect a broader call for African sovereignty in defining its political landscape, challenging the notion that Western standards of democracy are universally applicable.
The Western democracy? Sure. Yeah. So what is the problem? If democracy is not going to be perfect anywhere at all, as we have seen, as we always see, we see that, you know. What I don't like is just the hypocrisy. You are so deep in your own mess about democracy, and then you think you have authority to come and make criticisms about others, and even want that to have a consequence on them. It's just hypocrisy. And am I supposed to accept that?
Well, as a last question, you were elected in 2000, so 22 years in power. The next election is scheduled in 2024. You haven't said whether you would run, but do you consider running or?
Well, I will consider running for another 20 years.
Really?
I have no problem with that.
Really?
Yes.
This means the president.
We're talking about elections.
Yes.
Again, this is the contradiction and the hypocrisy I'm talking about.
Well, there could be limit on the mandates, right?
Elections are about people choosing, isn't it?
Right. When they're free and fair, yes.
And that's yes, okay. But you haven't. At least of all the criticisms you have had, nobody has said the elections have not been free or fair. But we have had it in other places that people don't even talk about, including even people who complain about us. So don't you have, right now as we speak, we are having cases in the developed world about election.
Right.
You remember not so long ago, there is a case going on somewhere in a very advanced democracy about
the United States, yes.
Somebody who wants to. So this is, I think people have to decide what they want to do for themselves. You see, you have problems of your own that somebody should be questioning, and then you want to, be the one to dictate what I should be doing. At the same time, even with the contradiction, because if you are talking about elections, and the election is about people choosing.
Yes, but there could be.
You are saying if it is free and fair, but that has not been the accusation. The accusation is different. Even the one you started, you are not talking about how free or not free the elections are. You are talking about just having to choose so many times. I think that this is different. Right?
Bassirou Diomaye Faye. Bassirou Diomaye Faye's inaugural speech emphasized a commitment to transformative change in Senegal, highlighting the people's desire for a fair and prosperous nation. He pledged to combat corruption and implement economic reforms that prioritize national interests, including renegotiating contracts with foreign oil, gas, and mineral operators. Faye assured citizens that under his leadership, Senegal would become a beacon of hope, characterized by peace, an independent justice system, and a strengthened democracy. His oath was witnessed by numerous dignitaries, including heads of state from Nigeria and Ghana, marking a significant moment following 3 years of political instability in the region. This smooth transition is viewed positively amid concerns about democratic backsliding in West Africa, where military coups have disrupted governance. Faye's administration aims to restore faith in democracy and ensure that Senegal progresses towards stability and development.
Once a jailed opposition candidate, Bassirou Diomaye Faye was sworn in on Tuesday as Senegal's 5th and youngest ever president. The 44-year-old former tax inspector defeated Amadou Ba, the candidate of outgoing President Macky Sall's ruling coalition, by a landslide in the first round of voting.
Je suis conscient que les résultats sortis des urnes expriment un profond désir de changement.
I am aware that the results of the ballot box express a profound desire for systematic change. Through my election, the Senegalese people have committed themselves to building a fair Senegal, a prosperous Senegal, a progressing Africa.
Dans une Afrique en progrès.
The new president has vowed to tackle corruption and introduce a series of economic reforms to prioritize national interests, including the renegotiation of oil, gas and mineral contracts with foreign operators.
Le Sénégal, sous mon magistère, sera un pays d'espérance.
Under my leadership, Senegal will be a country of hope, a country at peace, with an independent justice system and a strengthened democracy.
Démocratie renforcée, avec une justice indépendante et une démocratie renforcée.
This is my promise, based on the oath I have just taken before God and the nation in your presence.
Devant Dieu et devant la nation, en votre présence.
Over a dozen heads of state and regional representatives attended the inauguration, including Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu, Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo, and African Union Commission Chair Moussa Faki Mahamat. The military juntas of Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger also sent representatives. The smooth transition is a welcome boost for the country. 3 years of political turmoil in Senegal had raised concern about democratic backsliding in the coup-prone region of West Africa, where juntas have seized power and cut ties with traditional Western allies in favor of Russia.
Let us know in the comment section which speech was your favorite. That wraps up the video for today, guys. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to Insight.tv, leave a thumbs up, and of course share the video. Until the next time, see you in the next video.